Hello and welcome to A Junior, a Senior and I. Today we're tackling a bit of a different topic, the connection between AI and music. And for that, I am joined by Stefano and Asli. But before we start talking about the meat of the subject, let's meet them. Stefano, could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less, please?
Hi, everybody. My name is Stefano. I'm a musician, music producer, and composer, and former system engineer.
Cool. What about you, Asli?
Hi, my name is Aslihan. I'm a full-stack web developer and also an artist under the name of Aslihan Kyle.
Cool. Thank you very much. I made a known goal the first time I had you on the podcast, Asli, and I tried to pronounce your name. So now I know you've given me permission to call you Asli, so I'm going to stick to that instead of butchering it. If we dive right into the subject, if I remember correctly, Asli, you did a master thesis on music and AI, right? And that was before LLMs and transformers.
So I did do my master's thesis on AI within audio plugins, but it wasn't before LLMs and stuff got popular. It was a couple of years ago, so it was already in full swing at the time.
Okay. I guess then my question is more, do you guys know if AI was used in music production before this wave and craze of LLMs and transformers?
I don't know. Actually, I think there have been, no, I do know that there have been attempts at using AI, particularly on the more technical side. So I think it started with mastering quite a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, the first attempts were in 2016 already. But it's developed a lot, kind of alongside when LLMs became more popular. So did the use of AI in audio plugins. That's what I know.
Yeah, I think mastering suite powered by AI, they were the first to come up. I don't think it was AI back still. AI was more like, machine learning or something like that. But I think there was something more in the operational side of AI, like something they were trying to create tags or metadata for music, and then some audio plugins for audio editing and audio cleaning came along, but they were not generative AI. They were just operational AI. The way we are seeing music, AI used in music now, that's completely new.
Okay, and I'm guessing since it's taken off, because I'm a complete layman, but like the software I use to record the podcast offers me AI editing and like having AI songs and stuff like that. So at least companies are pushing it, which means that they feel it's ready or almost ready to be used by people that don't know anything, right? Did it not take off before because it was not good enough? Or is it just they're surfing on the wave and now if they put the LLM sticker, now it can be sold?
That's an interesting question. I'll be honest, I don't know the answer to that. I know that the first uses of AI, I think I remember reading an interview while I was doing my thesis where someone was talking about how you could kind of tell in the beginning when it was like AI mastering that was done, because the mastering stage often is a question of homogenizing the sound of all the tracks within a project, among other things. And AI wasn't capable of maintaining that amount of context and making multiple individual songs. I want to use the word coagulate, but I don't know if that's a good word for it. But so I would suspect that it was a question of capability, since these things improve exponentially as well, typically.
So I remember but just playing around with Udio, which was one of the first platform that would offer generated AI music, mostly as a curiosity. And it was pretty bad. And that was 2 years ago, more or less, 1 year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Now it's, like if you use Suno or any other platform that uses, whatever algorithm, the quality is way better. As a matter of fact, if you think that in US there are at the moment 3 or 4 songs in the top charts completely generated with AI, so he became pretty big now.
I do want to jump in here real quick and make make a statement that I noticed here that my expertise on AI in music is specifically in like technical audio plugins and less creative. I'm not very knowledgeable about the creative use of AI in music, except for I remember reading about Stromae using AI in music like a few years ago. Maybe that was the thing that was it was a couple of years back. So yeah, those are I think they're two kind of split domains of use of AI in music.
Yeah, yeah. Also, yeah, I personally want to say that, yeah, I never use AI to create music. That's like a mission of mine. So try to, stay away from using AI to generate music. I use AI for other stuff, but definitely not to help me or create instead of me.
If you allow me both to dig a bit more into that, because there is this discrepancy in between the AI might be able to make music that sells in the sense that they are top of the charts in the US. And for me, there is a question there of, is it because it's AI and it's a novelty and so people listen to it like, oh, look, AI can do X and that's how they trended? Or is it because people listen it even without knowing it's AI? But like, and both of your stances of, I won't use AI for my music, right? So there is this artistic value or artistic sense that you both have of, I am the maker of my music and AI won't help me with that. Can I ask you why? Is it a question of intent? Is it a question of I enjoy it and AI is taking the joy away? Or
Before I answer the question, I want to make a quick comment to what you said in the beginning about songs that are charting and whether or not people know that it's AI. I want to state that there are songs that were AI generated that have charted that people actively hid the fact that it was AI and marketed them. There's a case actually with the singer Georgia Smith. Her voice was used to generate the vocals to a song that was marketed as her vocals. So using her voice and her name to bring popularity to the song when it was not her, and they've made a bunch of money stealing someone's voice. So it's not even as naive as people do or do not know if it's AI. Is there are people creating AI music actively nefariously using that music to make money to the detriment of the people that they're stealing from to create the music. So that's one thing.
I'm going to rebound on that because I think it's a good moment also to say that although AI can feel exciting and like it's everywhere and it's even in the soup and like on my end, it's more on the AI coding part that I'm seeing more, right? All of these generative models and GPTs and are based on stolen or at least shadily gotten knowledge and texts. So I'm not condoning it. I'm saying I'm not even surprised that happened. And it's a thing to keep in mind in the discussion of AI in general and AI in music in particular.
Yeah. And then to answer your other question about the reasoning for not using AI, to be honest, I think using AI in creating art and advancing culture is very capitalist thought process that seems to go against the very nature of making art itself. It seems wrong to me to want to make the creative process more efficient. That just like fundamentally, that's such a weird approach to have to creation, especially creation of culture, which requires like the putting together of various elements and letting it, macerate and brew and pull something new out of what already exists.
Totally agree. I mean, I think it's a cheap, lazy ass way of making music using AI. That's pretty much it. The reason why people are using AI to generate music is because they want to make music fast. They might want to make, an album, 2 albums in a day or something, which has nothing to do with music, has more to do with content, which, unfortunately, that's what music became in the last 5 years, decade, I don't know. But using AI to generate music is basically helping this passage from, music as a art form into content. I remember Daniel Ek, from the CEO from Spotify, saying last year, "Oh, yeah, artists are lazy. They should create more music, to feed the Spotify economy, basically, because for this person, music is content, and that's how AI, came into the mix. Yeah, you can use AI and generate 3 albums in a day, put them on a playlist, and there you go. You got a lot of money. Yeah, sure. Generating music with AI with Suno is easy, and the quality is perfect now. And yeah, they actually did blind tests, and people could not recognize music made with AI or not with AI. So but that's not the point. It's, if you are an artist and you call yourself an artist, yeah, you understand that AI is not part of the picture, because it doesn't help you with your journey, it doesn't help you grow, it doesn't help you with your vision or what you want to do in your life, basically. So it's a business tool. That's how I see it. Well, business as in cheap, fast business.
Yeah, I think a good distinction to make is the use of AI to create art fundamentally turns it into an economic endeavor rather than an artistic or creative one. So it changes the fundamental intention behind the things. Sure, you can make a lot of music using AI, but are you contributing anything to culture? Are you contributing anything to the human experience? No, you're just copying off of something someone else has already created, actually. And
Right.
that's also the additional problematic part of it, is that AI could not create all these things if it did not go based off of what was already previously created naturally, like through the long process of a human going through things and then making something out of their experience. And then to reduce all of creation to, yeah, now you can just do it like that. It's like self-cannibalizing the medium.
I want to stay on this topic for a little bit, if you both don't mind. As soon as you get bored, let me know. But I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate, because whilst I'm agreeing with you, and again, I'm a complete layman, for me, art slash music has a part of self-expression, and there is a floor that you need of skill to be able to express yourself with music, right? Isn't the current AI helping people that do not have that skill express themselves in this medium? Because that's one of the things that people that defend AI in writing, music, video producing, etc., will put forth, right?
I can answer with another question, which may or may not be in the point, but would you hire a plumber that comes to your house and says, by the way, I have no idea of how this works. So, I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT how to change the toilet or whatever. And, it's the same, right?
Yes and no, because like another analogy that can be applied, I see the analogy you're making, but another analogy that can be applied is the various people that built your car don't know how the car works, right? They have a set of instructions. Usually they are built by machines, and you just need your car to work.
Yeah, I wouldn't compare a product, like an industrial product, to a piece of music or a piece of art.
I would actually argue that what you've described is how the music industry already does work the majority of the time.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the time, there's no one person who can do every single element of the creation of a song. Often, for example, when I make my music, I'm the songwriter. Often I write the lyrics, I write the melody top line, and I write the arrangement underneath it. Those are 3 separate roles already. I just happen to combine all 3 of them. But in addition to that, I'm not a good enough bass player or guitar player I'm good enough to play what I want it to sound like. I'm not good enough to put it to be satisfied with the result and release it. So I then contact people who are better than me at this. And I'm like, hey, here's what I want. Let me describe it to you. Can you help me out with that? And then I get someone else to mix it, because it's good to have a separate set of ears. And then I get someone else to master it. So in the example I've given you, there's at least 5 separate roles in the creation of one track. There's no one person who has all of the skill set to the level of expertise necessary to do all of it on their own. There are experts in the various roles that get together and create a project all together. So the analogy is actually perfect for the way the music is already created, the one with the car.
Yeah, gotcha.
AI does everything on its own and it removes expertise from the process. And there's a lot to be lost, actually, in the removal of individuals from the whole process, because I have so many songs that have been elevated substantially by just asking one person, hey, can you add to this? I have one of my favorite songs. I asked the bass player to write the bass line. He had a specific way of like modifying his bass production. And so I had a section where I wanted it to be a bit dirtier. And he did multiple tricks that took him years to develop that elevated the track in a way that I didn't even know was possible to do. And that's just because I included an extra person in the process. So there's a lot of loss in the removal of the humans from the process.
I see. One other angle I'd like to explore is that in my head, there is a want from some artists to experiment with what's new, right? Like photography came out. At first, it was just, hey, I can take a more faithful painting or whatever. Or acrylic came out and people started using it as paint. And then now they do like 3D paintings. And like new things usually, or yeah, tend to grasp at the beginning a small subset of artists to experiment with them, right? Do you think AI allows that experimentation, or will it just do something and you have less control, or you can is less malleable?
Well, the thing is, I have read and heard this narrative of, in the past, people were complaining when drum machine came on and synthesizer came on, because, the drums machine are gonna get the drummers out of the business and out of the market. Never happened, because those were tools with specific sonic settings. So they were used for specific things, and they sound in a specific way that a drummer could not be, or a violin could not be played as a synthesizer. So they were actually empowering artists to create something new from this technology. There were new sounds. They were completely different, completely new. AI is not a tool in that sense. AI is not creating a new sound. It's not used to create something that was not there before. It's actually putting things together that were there before. So that's how I see the difference between, synthesizers in the 80s and AI now.
Asli, you have something to add to that point?
No, I think that's a very good point. AI is more of like copier than a creation tool. It's a copy paste.
It's fair enough, and I understand how as artists it removes a lot of the expression you can have, right? But if we talk about the other side of the coin, is it useful in the actual production side, in the more technical nitty gritty mastering and that part of the spectrum?
It's useful for some things. Like, okay, there is one thing that the AI helped that was not there before in audio engineering, which is the cleanup of the audios, the background removal, or, the fact that you can use a plugin to separate the stems of a piece of music. For who doesn't know what stems are particular elements of a music. So the drum sound is a stem, the bass sound is another stem, the guitar sound is another stem, the vocal is another stem. So there are plugins that can take a song, separate the stems, which have their own, it's useful for some stuff, for education. If you have a song that was recorded in the 70s and you need specific stems for because you're using that song in a movie and you want to remove a tambourine because it's clashing with the vocals, with the speech, part of the movie. So you can use that plugin to get rid of the tambourine. And that's great. That was not as easy to do before. But other than that, sure, it's helpful for mastering, but also if you're mastering to vinyl, mastering for CD, you might as well go to a mastering engineer. Or if you really care about your music and you don't want to do everything yourself, use a mastering engineer to master your track. There are use for it, for these things, of course. Like, for instance, I do a lot of music for TV and media. The budget are so tight, almost non-existent, that I can't go to a mastering engineer and say, hey, can you master this song for me? Because, I would be losing money effectively. So I do the mastering myself, but those are specific tracks that don't have no vocals. I don't have any emotional attachment to those tracks. But, that's a specific use case. If you're, producing a song, as Aslian said, you're a songwriter, you're a producer, you might want another set of ears to do the mixing. And then the mixer might want another set of ears to do the mastering, because there is a process where eventually that song has to play as expected in every device. That could be a phone, could be a hi-fi system, could be a stadium. That's why you want a mastering engineer, because if you do the mastering yourself and for some reason your song gets played in a stadium, good luck.
To explain the reasoning why is that the setup, the audio listening setup of a mastering engineer usually is much more precise. It's very expensive equipment. Most people cannot afford that equipment if they are not themselves working as a mastering engineer. And that level of precision that it provides means that the probability is that if you play this track on your phone, in your car, off of good speakers, off of bad speakers, the important parts will all still sound similarly good. Whereas if you just use if you mastered something off of phone speakers, it would probably sound like shit on any other device, because you don't have sufficient, you can't hear enough of what's going on in all of the frequencies to see where problems might appear. Anyway, that was a quick explanation.
I think I'm gonna jump off your tangent because now I have a question that's burning me inside. You said mastering off of the speakers of a phone. In my head, the mastering was a super technical part in which you were looking at sound waves, but it feels like you have to have a pretty good ear, and actually you're doing it by sound.
Yeah, you go off, you listen. Any good mixing or mastering engineer goes off their ears, not what they see. You don't look at what you're doing, you listen to what you're doing. The visual feedback is just a tool, but it's not going to tell you how it's going to sound better than how it actually sounds. Do you know?
Yeah, but that automatically removes the ability of the AI to do that part, right? Like, at least well, one would think.
So it is a very technical thing. You can get very far by simply observing what is happening. You can get decently far. I don't know the level of detail of what an AI can detect off of the audio, but there's also an additional layer that mixing and mastering are not purely technical disciplines. They're also artistic. You gave the same track to a mixing engineer who does rock or a mixing engineer who does R&B, you're going to get different results based off of the expectations of what the genre is supposed to sound like. Same thing with a mastering engineer. And I'd actually not experienced this until a few years ago when I sent one of my tracks to get mastered by a very good mastering engineer who sent me back 3 versions. And then the following day, sent me another email saying, actually, I listened to your track again, and I think I've better understood the intention with it. Sent me a 4th version. They were all different, and the 4th one was perfect. So he'd understood something in the emotion of the song that he managed to get through in the 4th version, that the other 3 versions were technically doing the right thing. They were getting the audio to sound how it should in a master, but artistically, they weren't as good as the last version he gave me. So that's an extra layer to be added to those disciplines. You were going to say, Stefano?
No, that's a very good point. Actually, this is why you pay a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer for their years and for their experience. AI can, like I used again this mastering suite for some stuff, and it's based on patterns. So you select, okay, master this as a rock track, master this as a R&B track or a folk track, and it applies just some settings that could be equalization, compression, or saturation. But yeah, it's based on the data the algorithm is trained for. So it takes a bunch of rock tracks and say, okay, it might sound like this, So, and this, of course, now we talk all about these details, but most of the final users that dabble in music a little bit, that they listen to music when they are going to work or when they are going to do shopping or running, they don't understand the differences and they don't really care. But again, mixing and mastering engineer and all the people in the chain are paid to care about these things.
I also want to add something. I think it's less that they don't care. They don't know that they care. They can't identify it, but it can make the difference between someone listening to your song multiple times and someone listening to it but once and being like, okay. Like a bad mix or master can be the difference between someone wanting to replay your song and someone being like, I'm tired after that song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the difference between the song being just white noise whilst I do my shopping and, I stop and I take notice of the song, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear all that because at some point, I think it was you, Stefano, that mentioned business and the idea of you can create 2 albums in a day. And it feels, because the unit economics of creating a song with AI are completely different than using AI for search or for code, which is a continuing, right? Every time I can't create a piece of code and stop, I am creating pieces of code constantly, right? But a song, I will create it once. It might be expensive or not, depending on the AI. But if it's successful, it will remain successful and sell. Do you think that AI songs will be good enough to make that business case? Or the fact that they are white noise or because not done by a professional, et cetera, will prevent that? And I know I'm asking you to predict the future, which is impossible.
My answer to this isn't actually an answer to the question. It's more of a statement that the use of AI in the creative aspect of music making, music creation, isn't fundamentally a business and economic choice. It is a reduction of music to an economic cycle. It's actually the removal of culture, I think, from the music creation cycle. So the fact of using AI to create music, particularly, specifically for the creation aspect of it, because there is a use case for like the stuff that I wrote in my thesis that's like technical and saves time to the sound engineer. But the use of AI and the creative aspect of it is nothing more than a business and economic choice. That is all it is.
And also, you mentioned, Pablo, a successful song, like a song that becomes successful. Now, for a song to become successful, there's so many aspects, and not always is about the quality of the song itself. There's a lot of different aspects. If a song created with AI now will be successful in 10 months, will be still successful in a month, 10 months, 10 years, I'd say probably not, but that's true for all sort of music. Like you have an artist that is topping the charts now that might not be relevant next year because of how the music industry works. Because labels are not helping the artist grow. We might have a David Bowie now, but that new David Bowie won't be able to make a successful career for the next 30, 40 years because the music business won't allow it.
Actually, that's a good point as well, the thing you said about success based off of what metric, because I think you're saying success economically, which again just like proves to the point that it is just being discussed as an economic cycle. rather than there's a lot of music historically that was actually not successful economically at the time of its creation, but was culturally like massive and enormous. There's, I think, small example of it is the Velvet Underground's album. That when it came out, it sold like shit, but they saw about 30 years later the amount of successful artists, actually successful or not, there was a massive wave of artists musicians who were actively part of the culture in the years that followed that directly quoted like the Velvet Underground's album that sold something like 1,000 or something records only as being the reason why they made music. So this album that was not economically successful had a massive impact on the culture for the entire generation that followed. That culturally is successful. And what we have gotten out of it as humans and as artists and consumers of art is massive, not quantifiable, because those artists then would have influenced other artists as well.
Yeah, no, the idea of an artist, right? Like I'm more versed in books, and it's the same with the Don Quixote book from Cervantes, which Cervantes died poor, and like it was not, books were not a thing, novels were not a thing in Spain at that time, but the influence it has had afterwards is just massive, right? And I do get that. I do want to stress again, I'm playing devil's advocate. I know I'm triggering you both a little bit, but my idea is to get you to talk, I'm not defending the points my questions imply. But yes, I was saying that when I said successful, I meant business, in the sense that at the end of the day, the whole case for AI is business. And I feel like, again, as a layman, a lot of the music industry, as the as the name implies, is business. Like, from where I stand, again, not an artist, a layman, completely outside of that world, but the songs that get successful economically, or that get pushed in the radio, let me define success as pushed in the radio, whatever the radio equivalent is now, are, oh, this popped off, so now we're going to make that for 10 years, right? And at least from the outside, the music industry already feels like these are business decisions. And so will AI enter that calculation and be successful in that sense of business?
You know, there's another interesting thing. An artist, let's say in the early 2000s, right? We had an artist that would, record an album. So, you had musicians, producers, mixers, mastering engineers, then you have publishers, and then you have labels, and then you have, all the people around working because this artist is producing music. If you strip that out, there is no economy, in the sense that in the early 2000s, you were feeding, 50 people with an artist. Now, if you write your songs through a prompt on AI, you probably feed 2 people, the manager of the label, and maybe the publisher.
And Spotify's pockets.
And Daniel Elk, exactly. So this is not a sustainable economy. This doesn't create a sustainable economy because, where are the musicians? Where are the mixing engineers? Where are the mastering engineers? Where are the booking agents? Because if you create music with AI, you're most likely not able to play live. So all that aspect is gone. So you're not even contributing to the economy. That's why, the only case I see for AI to stick around in music as a generative tool is for content. So you have a podcast. You don't want to pay a license to somebody for a jingle. You let AI create a jingle. Who cares? Or you are a YouTube content creator. You have tons of videos. You don't want to pay a license for music that is barely heard, underneath your words. You use AI for it, which sucks because that was used to be part of my job, creating that music, which is now gone, but is almost gone. But that's life.
That's a good point you make with regards to it. The effect of using generative AI for music actually significantly reduces the life cycle of the music as well. on multiple fronts. As Stefano mentioned, if you're creating music through AI, you probably can't play it live. So you've stripped the entire like live touring industry out of the life cycle of a successful song. And in addition to that, it's true that if like a major artist releases a song now, there's probably they probably won't be getting the same listener rates for that same song in a year, but fans create a parasocial relationship with their favorite artists. So, I mean, Doechii released Alligator Bites Never Heal, something like, was it a year or two ago? I still listen to some of her songs because of the entire like story building around it and the emotional attachment that she created between her fans and her music means that I still go back to her old music. Whereas if it's an AI song, I don't give a shit, you know? I'm not gonna go back to it. I'm not emotionally attached to it. It's just background music. So you've stripped the music of its entire life cycle. It just becomes a stream on Spotify and nothing more.
It's interesting. I just want to react, Stefano, that the part of AI for the introduction of a podcast or things like that, didn't that already exist? Not the AI, but there are free of right music that artists do put out there and that you can use with a Creative Commons and stuff like that, right? Because that's what I use in part because of the same points you're making, in the sense that yes, I cannot afford to pay today someone to make an introduction and outro song for this, but I don't want to use AI for it because of all the ethical concerns that are behind it, right? And since here I can make a choice, this is my choice, right?
Oh yeah. Those were called royalty free.
Yeah.
Tracks that, but still, you get a track, you pay for it, and the artist or the composer get the money. Now, in the 70s, there were similar things. In the 80s, 70s, yeah, there were actually, the Wrecking Crew, the Motown baking band, basically, like amazing musicians that when they didn't have artists, they were creating music for advertising or for TV shows, and now back then you would have paid producer and the musicians. Now for the same thing, well, 3 years ago, you would pay maybe one person because of all the virtual instruments or because, recording is become cheaper and a bit more affordable. And now and in the next few years, you don't even have to pay anybody if you want, because if you're a producer of a TV show and you say, okay, the budget is tight, I'm just gonna create a song with Suno and that's it. Those are choices that you can make, but again, those are specific use cases that have nothing really to do with artist development or music as a cultural and an artistic form.
You're mentioning music in TV shows. I think I can imagine the kinds of TV shows that will have that, and it's budget constrained, etc., etc. Although there is always a budget constraint somewhere, but there is a lot of memorable songs that come from TV, that come from cinema, and a lot of soundtracks, and so that might again do a very big disservice to culture, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, when I'm talking about TV shows, I'm talking about reality shows, seriously, like Master Chef or these kind of things where the music is there just for really background music. Back in the 80s, there was this thing called Muzak, which was a label that would release music for elevators. That elevator music? That was it. And that was Muzak, this label in Chicago. I don't remember, when in the US. And that was purely business. Said, okay, no emotional attachment. Just create something that I can stick on an elevator and, nobody complains about. It's not memorable. It doesn't have to be memorable. You don't want people going up and down the elevator because they want to listen to the particular music. So actually, for these cases, the music doesn't have to be memorable because you don't want to take the attention away from what's happening on screen.
We are reaching the end of the allotted time, and I think I have a two-part question for both of you that might be answered with a yes or no, or an explanation, whichever you prefer. Do you want AI to remain or to be relevant in music? Yes or no? And will it? remain and be relevant in music, yes or no?
I think the probability is that the music industry will split probably into a purely economic section and a cultural section, or a new culture will form around the AI driven generation. I don't know, it's complicated because on a legal basis, the generative AI in music is a whole area of debate because it's based off of stolen music. In the last week, actually, I think it was SZA who found out that is it called Suno, the generative AI plug thing?
Yeah, Suno.
Yeah, Suno. So SZA, major American R&B artist, found out that they'd use 14 of her tracks, I think, to train their AI without asking her. So this AI is producing music that sounds like her, takes all of her references without ever having paid her for it. It sounds like a copywriting nightmare, and a lot of artists have been coming up with these things. Well, have been finding this out. There's definitely going to be changes. I think there's going to be a lot of legal and cultural pushback involved in whatever the industry ends up looking like in 5 to 10 years. And I think it's not going to look like what it is now. Does that answer the question?
It answers the question.
On the question, do you want AI to stay? I would say no for the generative part, because
Yeah.
again, it makes no sense to me. Although, yeah, I see the benefit of using AI for operational stuff. So that's honestly, that's the way AI should be used
I agree,
in
yeah.
music. That's it, as a tool to help artists, producers, mixer engineers achieve something, not making the journey for them. Will AI stay? Yeah. I mean, considering how much money companies left and right are throwing into AI, this is not going away. Not even in music, not even in entertainment. And, we haven't touched movies and cinema, because there are production houses that are actually using AI. Like, I think Ben Affleck was creating a production house completely with AI or something like that. So in AI in entertainment will probably stay. And it depends, as Aslian mentioned, it depends on how the legislation will work in the future to see in what capacity AI will stay. With that being said, I think there will still be songwriters. I think there will still be artists that believe in their music and they still want to create music. So that will not change. So, I don't believe there will be a shortage of artists, producers, mixer engineers, because eventually, people that make music for real care about what they do, and they don't want to take shortcuts. They don't need to take shortcuts. We can live together, in the future, in harmony and with everything in their own place, hopefully.
Cool. With this final message of hope, I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Stefano and Asli. It was really fun. Thank you so much for agreeing to this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.